Well, hello. It is Monday morning here. Well, yeah, sort of. Central time zone for those of you around the world, different parts of the day. But welcome to the Monday Mindset with Kevin DeShazo. And I'm Tracy Rader, the Director of Implementation here. Kevin heads up our sports division called Culture Wins. So we're so glad that you've made it. I see that there are some of you from LinkedIn, some from Facebook, and then some of you on the Giant platform. So we always welcome you on Mondays. So we want to talk about mindset today. Kevin, how are you?
I am fantastic. It's Monday. It's a holiday week, kind of winding down 2020, a year that I know many are happy to put in the rearview mirror and put behind them. But I love this time of year, love this week. Good time to slow down. How was your weekend? Oh, David Churchill, great to see you on LinkedIn from across the pond. You had a decent weekend, right? Anything crazy happen?
It was okay. No, it was a huge, you probably can see the bags under my eyes. We've had a fun, full weekend. Oh, hello, also from Washington, D.C. Sam, thanks for joining us. I had a great weekend. Friday night, my oldest son, so we have three sons, my oldest son got married to an amazing woman. It was a beautiful celebration and just a lot of fun, a lot of family in town. And so because of that, since everybody was in town, we went ahead and had our little family celebrations for Christmas. So I'm done. I'm free, Kevin, if you want to have me over on Christmas Day.
Outstanding. I'm sure my wife would love the additional help.
I mean, I know that gift that you bought me is waiting at your house anyway.
It is, yes.
I should run by and grab that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it was a great weekend. I'm like hoarse. I'm tired, but it was super fun. So top that. How was your weekend?
I will not top that. I cannot top that. It was a great weekend. You know, we had basketball for our boys, had some rest, got a run in last night. My oldest, he loves fantasy sports. And so we had our fantasy basketball draft last night. We've been doing fantasy football this year. He used to help me. And then this year he's better than I am. So he's taken over his own team. So just a good kind of relaxed family weekend. I'm excited about this topic. Today I get to interview you. So this is the fun part. Like I get to shut up for the day. And we get to learn from the great Tracy Rader. So for those who don't know, and you mentioned it, I think last week or a couple weeks ago on Monday Mindset, you and your husband have a, 870 acre vineyard. Is that right?
Yeah, I wish. We have a measly 5 acres that we live on.
It was close.
And so a very tiny amount of that is a small hobby vineyard.
Yeah. And I love it. Right. And so what that, it's a labor of love, right? To operate a vineyard of any size, right? It still takes a level of intentionality, a level of care, a level of detail. And I think so this is the Monday Mindset. We like to talk about how we think impacts how we operate and how we live, and always want to be figuring out how do we get better at mindset? How do we have a better mindset? And I think there are some incredible lessons that we can learn from what you've done and what you do operating this little vineyard. So let's hear it. How can we get better with our mindset based on the lessons that you've learned from your vineyard?
Sure. I think I'll just start out with why a vineyard. So you all don't know me personally that are watching, or some of you may, but I think people would describe me as a jack of all trades, master of none. I like to dabble in a lot of things. I'm not really expert in anything because I'm too busy trying different things. I just feel like, gosh, I'm turning 50 in a month, and I'm like, there's just not enough years to try everything that I want to try. So I don't ever get really, really good at anything because I go on to the next thing, which is a little bit different for a guardian, if you all know our language. But this is our vineyard. So back when I was in college, I lived in Baltimore, Maryland for 2 summers. I was doing an internship, and my dad didn't feel comfortable with a 19-year-old driving out there by themselves from Oklahoma to Maryland. So he rode with me. And along the way, we kept seeing these beautiful vineyards in like Kentucky and Virginia. And so we would stop along the way and we'd see them. And neither of us are big wine connoisseurs. In fact, I don't even really love wine. I mean, every once in a while I'll find a bottle that I like, but I said, "Oh, Dad, as a really immature 19-year-old, hey, someday I want to have land. I'd always wanted to live in the country. I didn't grow up that way, but I said, when I buy land someday, let's plant a vineyard." And he was like, "Oh, okay." He's not much of a dreamer. And he's like, "Yeah, right, whatever." And so fast forward many years, 10, 15 years. I'm married now. I've got children. We've been living in a cul-de-sac, in the little neighborhood, and I kept looking for land. And finally, one day, this piece of property came up, and just 5 little acres with a pond. And so we bought it. And so I got my shovel and I just started digging, and I bought I think at the time, about 30 vines, and they were Rieslings. I didn't do any research. We live in Oklahoma. It's not a big wine state, not a big vineyard state. But I got out there and I started shoveling, and I called my dad and I said, hey, we bought land. Do you want to come out and help me? And he was, like, what? And so he did. He came out there, and so from there, we just started really just trying it. And so now we have about 120, well, not about, we have exactly 120 vines. These are our table grapes, just eating grapes. So these are like Concords that you would buy at the store to eat. They're really good. These on the other side, so we have a big long driveway. When you come into the right, purple grapes are there. To the left, these are Riesling grapes. And that's what we make our wine out of. And so I've learned lessons along the way. So this is my dad up here, kind of, I think he's either pruning or maybe he's watering. And so it was just a really cool, fun way to spend time with my dad, and special thing. And so I ended up naming the vineyard after him. His name is Joseph Henry Little. And so I just took off the little, and I just thought, I'm going to call it Joseph Henry Vineyards. And I'm so glad I did. We started this in 2007, and in 2000, and I believe it was 17, my dad passed away from a massive stroke. So one day he was over and we were having fun together, and the next day he was gone. And this is just a really special memory that I have with him and of him. And it's something, just when I look out my front door, I see it and it reminds me of him. So try not to get choked up. So that's that. So I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and this is one of the biggies. So equating this to mindset, I would just say this, that a person with a healthy mindset doesn't allow obstacles or less than ideal conditions or trials that come along the way detour them from their goals or their value system even. And this little picture, I don't know if you can see, Kevin, but these are T-shirts and anything that we could find. My husband and I woke up and realized that the weather, in the spring, about April 15th is when they say in Oklahoma that you can kind of think, okay, it's not going to freeze anymore. And so we'd already pruned our grapes and took all the foliage off and started kind of the budding process. So when you cut them off, then they start to bud. Well, we'd done that about a week I think after April 15th. And we look at the weather, and it was going to freeze late in the year, this particular year. And we were like, oh no, because if you've cut them off and they're exposed, then they're going to freeze and it's not going to bud properly, and it's just not going to be a good harvest. And so we just couldn't let that happen, right? So we got in our closets and got out all of our sheets and our pillowcases and our T-shirts and our sweatshirts, and we went out to every vine. And actually, I'm saying we, but I really think it was mostly my husband. I think I was busy that day, and he went out there and tenderly covered every plant to see if he could save them. And about maybe 20% didn't make it, but the rest, because of his hard work, saved them. And so we had a pretty good harvest that year. But it just makes me think of life, and that, as we all know, especially through 2020, of course, things are going to happen. Obstacles come, crazy things happen that we didn't plan for, and you just pivot, right? You change and you make the most of it. And so that's what I've learned in this area.
Well, and it's so easy to just bail. You know what? We're just not going to do it this year, right? It's like it wasn't supposed to be, and but that obstacle requires an action, right? And that action usually not to quit. Usually it's not to bail. Usually it's not to run. It's a lot of times it's a test, right? Of like, are you really in this? Are you really committed? Like, no, we have a vineyard. This is part of what we do. An obstacle hit, great. Okay, what's the next natural thing for us to protect our work, to keep moving forward? And it's difficult and it's inconvenient, but that's what it requires to keep going. So I love that lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was fun. I mean, it was just, a lot of hard work, but you see a bottle of wine and you think, it's no big deal. It's a big deal. There's a lot of components that go into a bottle of wine. So I guess the next thing that I've learned is, and you'll hear this a lot if you're a church going person or a preacher or a gardener, but if not, you don't hear a lot about pruning, that a person with a healthy mindset sees the value in deep pruning. And I said deep because if you'll notice here at the bottom of the screen, these little vines that you saw before were like this huge foliage, which if I'm standing there, they probably go 8 feet. So about 2 or 3 feet above me. There's just all this beautiful foliage and leaves. But in the spring, you have to go and cut it all off. And you really only leave about 6 or 8 inches above that the vine right there. And the reason is because, we're saving all the energy we can to make grapes. The foliage is beautiful, but it's pointless. And so if you leave all of that, then that's taking energy out of the ground and the nutrients and the vitamins, and it's putting it all in the foliage instead of in the actual grape. And that's your goal, is to have this beautiful harvest of grapes. And so it's the same in life. I mean, it's a person with a healthy mindset has to understand that in life you have to prune. And, coming up here in 2021, January 1st, a lot of people have New Year's resolutions, and I love that. I think it's great. But part of that resolution can be, what can I prune or cut away from my life so that I don't have excess of things that don't need to be there, so that I can focus on what's important and what are my goals. With my son and his wife getting married, I was telling him, my husband set aside a time every year where the two of us, we love to go to different bed and breakfasts around the state and around different areas. And we'll take a notepad or our computers and we will spend the weekend just setting our goals. What do we want to accomplish? It doesn't have to be major. You don't have to read 1,000 books that year or whatever. It can be, how much money do we want to save or give away this year? Or what do we want to invest in? Or, what do we want to really spend our time doing? What are some things? And for me, I don't know about you, but if I don't write it down and make a goal, it's probably not going to happen because life gets away from you. And so this pruning has to do with, all right, we're spending way too much time on Netflix and Amazon Prime. Let's set a goal to take some of that away so that we can spend time having a few more people over and sharing a good meal with friends.
And even pruning good things.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a really critical thing, is like, because you said you're cutting away all this beautiful foliage. Like, it's amazing, it's beautiful, but it's not helpful for where you're trying to go, for what you're trying to do. I think that's what's really hard for us. Like, to get where you want to be, to get better, may mean you have to prune some good things. Right? You're getting rid of good things so that you can have great things. And I know that sounds really cliche, but as you set these goals for 2021, it's like, what habits do you need to put into place? And what habits do you need to drop? Right? Even some habits that have been good, they may not be the right habits for the next season. So being willing to prune, to cut away good things, knowing that better things are ahead because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we talk a lot about family on here as well. And you with young kids, there comes a time when you're a parent of young children, and we had to do this, where everyone's in sports or the girls are in dance or whatever it is. And it just becomes so much that you don't even have family time. And so I think in your family, you have to do it as well. And we have to set that example for our kids. Hey, we're not going to run around with our heads cut off like a chicken. We're right. Going to actually control our time that we spend as a family and make sure we're investing in each other. And so this is a great time to kind of sit down as a family, look at your calendar, your schedule, who's involved in what. And you might have to say, sorry, son, you can't be in basketball and football at the same time. We just can't do it. And that has to be a family decision,
That's right.
So, pruning is super important. The next thing I'd say is just a person with a healthy mindset understands that there are seasons. There are seasons in life, and winter comes. Now, some of you down in Florida, maybe winter doesn't come, but just use my analogy here. It is okay that winter comes. Here on our vineyard, we actually are kind of excited when winter comes because it's a lot of work in the spring and the summer to prune and to water and to spray and to do all the things that it takes to keep the vineyard going. And so in the winter, I can go, okay, I'm going to rest. I'm going to read up about what I need to do next year to have the best harvest or whatever. And that's okay. And I think as human beings, we have to know that we don't have to be pressing full on all day, every day. There's something wonderful and healthy about recharge.
And it's, we've bought into the lie of the hustle culture. Right, where we have to always be on, always be working, always be hustling, always be grinding. Like, if you're not working, somebody else is working. They're getting ahead of you. I'll sleep when I die. It's like, that's just not healthy, right? We have to make time to pause, to reflect, to rest. And I get to work in the sports industry a lot, and we know that rest makes athletes perform better right? Because they recover faster, they recover better when they make rest a priority. But that's not just an athlete thing, that's a human thing, right? We all perform better when we're rested. And so there's a season to back off. And this right now, this season of the year is a great time. If you can, take a week off and spend some time just resting and being present with people. If it's just a day, that's okay too, right? It's easy. Well, I can't take a week off. I can't take 2 weeks off. Can you take a day? Can you take an afternoon and just get time to rest and reflect?
Absolutely. I agree. And, our bodies are naturally designed to shut down if we don't do that anyway. I mean, for one, if I lose sleep, if I go full force, I will get sick. My body will get sick. And so I have to be pretty intentional not to let that happen. Plus, I can't be the kind of leader, the kind of person, the kind of mom, the kind of wife, the friend that I need to be if I don't take that time. So
that's right. Rest is not selfish.
Right. This is just another winter picture. I just think it's really pretty when the snow is falling, and that's a little vineyard sign. Next, I just say a person with a healthy mindset pivots, adjusts, and reassesses when things don't go as planned. So this little jar, so this year, I think it was probably 6 or 7 years ago, we had a beautiful harvest. We'd worked really hard. We made wine. We spent all the time doing all the steps, in the process to make wine. And we took a sip right before we were going to bottle it, and it was disgusting. It tasted kind of like vinegar. You could tell it was Riesling grapes in there somewhere, but it was just really bad. And I think we had about 15 gallons sitting there. And so we were like, my husband was like, well, I guess I'll just pour it out, out in the back acreage. And I was like, no, we can't. I just can't let it go. We've worked too hard. And so I was just thinking about it. And I know a lot of people will pick grapes and make jelly. I just had not heard of taking wine and making jelly out of wine. And so I thought, I'm just going to try it out. So I put a bunch of sugar and I stirred and I put it on the stove and I just kind of made a concoction, and I ended up making Riesling wine jelly and bottled it. I think I had about 40, 50 jars of wine jelly, and I didn't know if anyone would like it, but we started handing it out and giving it away and selling it, and people ended up absolutely loving it. It has a really distinct flavor. It tastes like wine, but it's in jelly form. And I just really love it. I serve it whenever I can, when we have parties and things like that. And so what went all wrong, we were able to pivot and adjust and go, okay. And we made something good out of it. And I think that happens in life a lot. You have to. Our plans are great, but our plans just don't always come through. And also, like with this, I put in there, we have to reassess, because then my husband and I are like, what did we do wrong in the winemaking process that it was so bad? So we had to step back. We had to reassess. Okay, next year, what are we going to do different so this doesn't happen again? We can always make Riesling wine jelly, even when there's good wine. We don't need to ruin it to make that again. So yeah, that's what a healthy mindset does.
Well, and I think you look at, again, 2020, it was the healthiest people pivoted. Right. It was a year that didn't go as expected. It didn't go as planned. It's like, okay, now what? Right. We can shut down and throw everything away. I'm like, oh, it's all just a waste. Or we figure out, this path wasn't working. Is there another path? And so that requires a healthy mindset. That requires some healthy perspective. At the end, like, hey, this didn't go as planned. Number one, why? What? Like, I saw a great video recently from Kara Lawson, Duke's women's basketball coach. And she's like, preparation doesn't guarantee results. It guarantees growth. And so like, as you're showing up and doing the work, you can't guarantee outcomes. You can't guarantee that you're going to have good wine at the end of the season. You just can't. You do the work. And if you do it right, you learn along the way. Right. And so you learn something about the process. You learn something about yourself. You learn how to make wine jelly. And so you still got better in the midst of it. There's still possibility. And so to not be so married to outcomes, but just be committed to showing up along the way. And if it doesn't go as planned, it's like, okay, now what? And even if you would have had to throw it away, that would have been okay too. You still could have learned through that process. Hey, what went wrong? What would we change next year? But just because things don't go as planned doesn't mean you just throw your hands up and quit, right? There's always an option. If you back up, you reassess and pivot.
I agree. Great point. Just that, I think But I think probably the number one thing I've learned the most out of this vineyard is to love and enjoy the process, not, like you said, be so focused on the end result of wine that if it doesn't work out, you forget that there was so much beauty along the way. I mean, there's so much. I love every step of this vineyard. I love walking out there in the evenings when it's all beautiful, full of foliage. I love relaxing by going out there and watering it. We don't have an automatic watering system like most large vineyards do. So I literally take my hose and I stand at each, 120 of them. And it takes a long time, but it's kind of relaxing. Mm-hmm. I love mowing around it, making it look perfect. I love having friends over and us showing them the vineyard. So those things you miss if you're only focused on the end result.
That's right. That's right. And regardless of the outcome, like, of course you want a certain outcome.
Sure.
But if you're so focused on that, you miss everything else. Mm-hmm. Everything else becomes a chore, becomes work. And so it's like, man, this is just part of the process. And I can be grateful and present in all of it, even if I don't get the outcome you want, right? It's like, you still have all the memories, all the work, all the lessons, all those moments that, like, I know this didn't go how I wanted, but I really loved standing out there watering it and just being alone, being in nature, like having that stillness, having that time to yourself, mowing, all those little things. If you have the right perspective, you get to enjoy the process.
Absolutely. Love that. And then finally, that a person with a healthy mindset takes time to celebrate along the way. Of course, always takes time to celebrate for the harvest that comes. Sure, that's an easy one. But like we were saying, celebrates along the way. So again, this is my dad, passed away about 3 years ago. But man, every time we have a win out there, anytime really I'm out there working, I can remember him, all that he taught me. I can celebrate him, having a great dad. We have friends over, and during harvest time, if there's a harvest, every once in a while there's not. I mean, there's a million ways you can destroy a vineyard, Kevin, and we've experienced them all. I think there's these beetles, Japanese beetles that can come in. And a couple years ago, the day before we harvest, so you have to wait for the right sugar content to be in your grapes before it's time to harvest. You want just the right, everything has to be just right before you harvest. And it was about a day or two before harvest, and it was perfect. And we were excited. We were getting ready to invite everybody over. And the night before, millions of Japanese beetles, they come and they land on every little grape and they just suck the juice out. So you go there and there's these plump, beautiful grapes. And then the next day you look and they look like flat raisins. There's nothing left, all in one swoop. And you're so disappointed. There's viruses that can come through, and there's black rot, and there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. But when it goes well, you're like, wow, that was awesome. Everything aligned and we're good. But we can celebrate. And so we always have a big party during the harvest, and we take our big farm table out there, and I usually make a big breakfast and coffee and orange juice, and we have people over to help us harvest. I mean, it really doesn't take long. It's 120 plants. It takes maybe 30 minutes. But it's at 6 a.m. So only people who like to get up at the crack of dawn will come over. But man, we love being with our friends and just sharing it with them, and eating together, enjoying a meal together. And we celebrate because that's what you do. I mean, don't be so busy in life going to the next thing that you can't stop and celebrate.
And as leaders, we got to get that. Like if you're leading a team, family, like that's such a critical thing, because we get so busy. And it's not like we're not trying to be bad leaders. We're not trying to ignore things that went well. It's just, there's always something else to do. There's always the next thing to move to. But to pause, to celebrate, to acknowledge, especially if you're leading a team, acknowledge the work that they put into it, acknowledge the win that they got, acknowledge what went well. You're going to find that they'll move to the next thing with a lot more excitement, with a lot more energy, with a lot more passion, because they were acknowledged for the previous thing. And so celebration, it doesn't have to be, a full day. It doesn't have to be a week. It doesn't have to be this insane, crazy thing. Sometimes those are good, by the way, like that, to set aside time for like a significant team celebration. But sometimes it's just taking 30 minutes. Like, guys, before we move on to this, like, let's acknowledge the work that we just put in for the last season, the things that went well, and show some appreciation and gratitude for your people along the way.
That's right. Yeah. And these labels, I think part of my celebration is celebrating my dad, remembering him. But these wine labels, I don't know if you can tell on the one on the right side. That's grappa, by the way, that we make off the skins. After we're done making wine, we make grappa. That's a whole different discussion, but you'll see the little, the labels. My brother Todd designed those. And so he's part of the process, and I celebrate him. My mom gets in there and helps us. My husband did so much this year. I mean, I attribute him to, we had our very best harvest of all time this year, which we had about 48 bottles that we got off our vineyard this year, and 24 bottles of grappa. But, you know, when you celebrate, don't forget to pinpoint and highlight those people in your life that allowed you to succeed. So I'm acknowledging right now my mom, my brother, my husband, all the people that came out to harvest. It's just, it takes a lot of people to do that. And we celebrate not just what we get out of it, but the people along the way as well.
I love it. So good. Who knew there were so many lessons from having a vineyard, making wine, that impact our mindset. And I think too, just to have something like to care about your craft, right? It takes like time, dedication, energy. Like you have to care about running a vineyard. Like it's not just something you do. It's like you put your best into it. And so I think for the work that we do, whether it's your work with your team, your family, it's like when you care about something, you give it your best, and you enjoy the process along the way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, let me check the chat. I've been chatting, so I haven't been checking much. But let's see. Joanna just said, I love to celebrate. I celebrate every little thing. Any checkbox or completion means progress. That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. Amen.
Well, thanks for letting me share today. That was fun. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas with your boys and your wife, and all of you watching. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, however you celebrate. And we're so thankful for you all, speaking of celebrating. So join us again when we come back after the holiday season. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.